You've probably heard of Mark Minervini. He's a legend on Wall Street, a U.S. investing champion who famously turned just a few $1,000s into millions. But his real story isn't just about the massive wins. It's about how he solved the one problem that crushes almost every single trader. How do you actually stay profitable consistently without blowing up your account along the way? And this quote? This is the core paradox of his whole system. See, most of us think that getting good at trading is all about addition, finding some secret indicator or a magic formula. But what Minervini figured out is that real, lasting success is all about subtraction. It's about mastering what not to do and systematically getting rid of the mistakes that wipe traders out. So before we can even get into his system, we have to understand the problem he solved. Minervini learned these lessons the really hard way, through years of trial and error, and he basically boiled it all down to a few critical mistakes that just consistently destroy trading accounts. And here they are, the account killers. Averaging down on a stock that's tanking, we've all felt that temptation, right? Trading on a hunch instead of a solid plan, fighting a weak market, trying to be a hero, getting cocky, and betting way too big after a few wins, and finally, treating the market like it's some kind of personal battle. Every single one of these is a trap that feels smart in the moment, but is actually setting you up for total disaster. But here's the thing. Those aren't just tactical slip-ups. They're actually just symptoms. They all come from the same place, a deeply flawed mindset and a fundamental misunderstanding of what trading really is. And until you fix that core mindset, you're never, ever going to fix your strategy. And that brings us to the core mental shift that changed everything for Minervini. He realized he was coming at the market like a warrior, trying to win a battle. But to actually succeed, he had to start thinking like a businessman running a company. This one distinction is the foundation for his entire philosophy. Let's really break this down, because it's huge. The warrior, they see a loss as a personal insult, a blow to their ego. They refuse to retreat. They're trying to prove they're right and the market is wrong. But the businessman, a loss is just a cost of doing business. It's a product line that didn't sell, so you cut it fast. A businessman isn't trying to beat the market. They're trying to operate a profitable business within it. That changes the entire game. Okay, so you've made the switch. You're thinking like a businessman now. You're ready to manage costs, make rational decisions, fantastic. But now what? How do you find your inventory? How do you know which stocks have the highest odds of being profitable? Well, that's where the system starts. The very first step is to get that stocks have a predictable life cycle. It's true, just like a product or anything else really. Minervini saw that all the great winning stocks move through 4 very distinct stages. And knowing which stage a stock is in right now is the most critical filter of all. So it basically breaks down like this. Stage 1 is the base. It's the neglect phase where a stock is just flat and boring. Stage 3 is the top, where the party's ending and the big money starts to sell. And stage 4 is, well, the painful decline. But the magic, the super performance, the life-changing moves, that all happens in one place. Stage 2, the advancing phase. And that's the only stage Minervini will ever touch. And here's why that is so important. His research showed that nearly every single one of the market's biggest home run stocks was already in a confirmed stage 2 uptrend before it made its explosive move. So think about that. By focusing only on stage 2 stocks, you are dramatically, massively stacking the odds in your favor. You're literally fishing where all the fish are. All right, so we know where to look now. We're hunting in stage 2, but we need a process for what to look for. And this is where Minervini's signature method comes in. It's a complete system he calls SEPA. SEPA stands for Specific Entry Point Analysis. But don't let the name fool you. It's not just some simple chart pattern. It's a whole framework, a master checklist that combines everything: the chart's technical action, the company's fundamental health, super strict risk rules, and the overall market environment. It's the engine that runs the entire business. SEPA is built on these 4 pillars. You can't have one without the others. It makes sure you're managing your risk, that you're only picking the absolute strongest stocks, that you're trading in sync with the market, and, maybe most importantly, that you're getting in at a very precise low-risk point right before the big move is supposed to happen. So how do you find that exact entry point? It all comes down to the most basic concept in economics: supply and demand. The entire goal is to buy a stock at the precise moment that the sellers have all disappeared, leaving the stock totally vulnerable to rocket higher on any new wave of demand. And he has a name for this signal: the volatility contraction pattern, or VCP. If you look at a chart of almost any big winner, you'll see it. The price swings, they get tighter and tighter and tighter. And at the same time, the trading volume just shrinks, it dries up. The stock gets quiet. That quiet is the sound of institutions absorbing every last share. It's the market whispering to you that supply has vanished. That is the signal. Okay, so we found the right stock in the right stage with the perfect setup. We're ready to go, right? Wrong. Because none of that, and I mean none of it, matters without this last, most important pillar of all, mastering risk. This is what separates the pros from the gamblers. Full stop. This quote is everything. It is pure businessman logic. A good CEO knows you have to cut costs without mercy. In trading, that means you cut a losing trade immediately. You don't sit there and hope it comes back. You definitely don't add more money to it. You take the small hit, you accept it, and you move on to the next opportunity. And this leads to a massive professional secret: progressive exposure. Amateurs add to their losers. They average down, basically throwing good money after bad, hoping to be proven right. Professionals do the exact opposite. They take a small trial position. If and only if it works, if it moves in their favor, they add more. They pyramid into strength, not weakness. They only risk big money when the market is already proving them right. So what does this look like in the real world? Here are his actual numbers. He's aiming for a concentrated portfolio, just 4 to 8 stocks at a time. He'll start with a small position, maybe 5 or 10% of his account. If the trade starts working, he might build it up into a big 25% position. But the absolute, non-negotiable golden rule: never, ever let a single loss go past 10%. That's the emergency brake. Now, you might be wondering, does all this discipline and all these rules, does it actually work? Well, in a documented 5.5-year period, Minervini compounded his account by over 33,000%. That's the kind of power you unlock when you stop making fatal mistakes and just focus on a proven process. So really, the most important takeaway from all this is simple. Becoming a great trader isn't about finding some magic bullet. It's about becoming a sculptor, methodically chipping away all the bad habits, the flawed mindsets, and the destructive behaviors until all that's left is a clean, repeatable, and profitable process. And that really just leaves one final question you have to ask yourself. Look at your own trading, your own approach. Are you fighting the market, taking losses personally, letting your ego call the shots? Or are you running a business, managing costs, analyzing data, and focusing, above all else, on long-term profitability? Because the answer to that question will probably determine your entire future in the markets.